Hello and welcome back to the TRBusiness video channel. I'm here today with Stewart Dryburgh. Thank you so much for joining us today here, Stewart. It's great to have you. Stewart is the General Manager for the Travel Retail Division of Nestlé. And today we're talking about something unique to this industry and something that's been fairly recently announced, and it marks the start of a very exciting chapter, potentially, for the confectionery and food category. Stewart, for the uninitiated, could you tell us more about the VERSE model and why Nestlé set up the strategy?
Well, good afternoon, Charlotte. Great to be here with you. Thanks for your time. The VERSE model is a tool to help us achieve a strategic aim. And as you already alluded to there, it's about the food category in its totality, and the exciting opportunity that a holistic view of the food category brings to the industry. Because what's become apparent to us during this more than 18-month hiatus that we've been working our way through is the untapped opportunity of food in its broadest sense. Everybody understands Nestlé as a confectionery business, and certainly within this channel, we're certainly known for that with brands like Kit Kat and Smarties and After Eight, Nestlé Swiss and so on. But of course, we are the world's largest food and drinks company with a range of different categories that we operate in. But we've never exploited them fully within this industry, and the industry's never fully exploited food as a category in its totality. As an industry, I think we've been extremely successful in doing confectionery very well. And I think between ourselves and our competitors, so whether it's Mondelez or Mars or Lindt or Ferrero or whosoever, the confectionery category has been extremely well developed. But food hasn't. And what we identified during the crisis, and the crises give you that God-given sort of opportunity to actually really step back and draw breath and take a look at what's going on and take a look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie. And really what it allowed us to identify was this disparity that exists between the scale of confectionery within, let's call it the food category within travel retail, and the scale of confectionery in domestic. And we're over-indexing dramatically in travel retail on confectionery, if you look at it one way. If you look at it the other way, we're significantly under-indexing on the rest of the food categories. So, and I think this is the way we look at it. We see the glass very much half full. We don't want to sell one less chocolate bar from any of us. So whether it's Kit Kat or Toblerone or Rocher or Lindt or M&M's, confectionery it is, and will continue to be the beating heart of the food category. But there's a lot more we can do in addition to what we're doing there. And I think that's really the start point to the strategy itself and the VERSE model as a way of thinking about this in a holistic whole.
Obviously, we can see some more information about the very components of the model behind you there, very nicely displayed. But also, you talked about food there and the opportunity. Why do you think historically the food category has been underperforming in travel retail?
That's a really good question, and again, it ties back into the data we looked at. I mean, and some of the information that we shared around Cannes with the industry as a whole, and we continue to publicise now, is if you look at a selection of different categories within food segments, let's call it, within the food category, they're all in domestically, they're all in growth somewhere between 3 to 5% per annum in value. So that's using Euromonitor, which is the kind of established global measure outside of our industry. Some are 3 to 5%, some are a little bit higher, some are a little bit lower, but it's generally in that 3 to 5% per annum growth. You come into our industry, and across that 5-year window prior to the crisis, we were marginal decline. And again, it's one of those things. Well, we knew, we weren't doing as well as we could, and we knew we were pushing for more. And us as Nestlé, prior to the crisis in early 19, we launched the 10 in 10 model, but it was very confectionery focused and really looking to get confectionery up and running. And what the crisis allowed us to do was to step back and say, look, let's take a bigger picture view of what's going on. And we really looked at those two dynamics, which is, look, food is growing extremely well across all the subsegments outside travel retail. In travel retail, it's not. And then when you looked at it, so look, confectionery is 77% of travel retail's packaged food sales, and yet it's only 7% in domestic. It really kind of, that 7 plays 77 says, not that we're over egging confectionery, and again, we're not. We're doing confectionery extremely well within the industry. What we're not doing is the other slug that's 93% outside of this world and presents huge opportunities. And I think the one other thing that it then allowed us to step back and have a look at was there are geographies who are more focused on the broader food portfolio, and the Middle East is a leading example of how to exploit some of the categories, not all of them, but some of them. And so whether it's, I referenced Colin in my presentation at the time because he's been there longest, as we know extremely well, but he's got a young man's point of view when it comes to this, which is about spotting the opportunities and really grabbing them and understanding the traveller and understanding there were opportunities for products like milk powder, like Badinido, or in Tang, which is a P&G product, selling extremely high volumes of these sorts of products and different categories. And if you go to the Middle East, they take a more holistic view of food. We can do more, and very pleased to say, post the presentation that we shared through October, we've had an extremely positive response, not least from the guys in the Middle East, because they were the ones who were first bought into it. So that ability to sort of look at, it's growing in domestic, but it's not with us. Maybe we're doing something wrong. And it's not that we're not doing confectionery well, we are. But again, up until the crisis, a lot of the growth was being led by the Chinese, for example. We all know that. Now, the outbound Chinese were spending an awful lot on perfumes, cosmetics, and our peers in L'Oreal and Coty and Estee Lauder are doing very well off the back of it. But confectionery, well, the Chinese don't have a sweet tooth. They didn't grow up with sweet snacking as part of their repertoire. And as a consequence, they're not as likely to buy in as Europeans or North Americans or Latin Americans or even from the Middle East, Saudi, Emirati, and so on. So it's also a consciousness of, well, who are these growing travellers and are they interested in certain food categories? And they are. And it's then about starting to say, well, how do we put this whole together? So a combination of different factors, to be honest, Charlotte. And, gradually as we kind of get our arms around the whole thing and pulled the whole thing together, we realised, actually, there's a big opportunity here.
Absolutely, for the numerous different reasons that you mentioned there. And of course, when you say calm, for those that have been living under a rock for God knows how long, the great leader at Dubai Duty Free. And as you say, in that part of the world, they really know what they're doing in terms of various different food subcategories. Moving on to one of the elements that I can see, next to one of your shoulders there, which is regeneration. Obviously, sustainability has risen to the top of the agenda in travel retail. However, we are all acutely aware that consumers are always demanding more, and they want the industry and indeed all brands to go even further. And that's where I believe that Nestlé is trying to do that with regeneration. Not just trying to save the planet by being more sustainable, but actually growing more. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Absolutely. So look, I think regeneration as a word was launched by Nestlé back at the very end of September, a month before Cannes. So there's a lot of stuff publicly out there for anyone to go and Google and go and explore. But the core thought of regeneration is about going beyond sustainability. Sustainability, everyone's bought into. We get it. Everyone's kind of understands that the planet, there's just, we're on one planet, there's a finite amount of resources, and there's far too, many of us trying to draw too much of it at the moment. So everyone's gets sustainability. Regeneration is a thought that says actually just sustaining is not enough. It's about protecting, it's about renewing, and it's about restoring the planet. Now, we're a food company, so we understand regenerative nature of agriculture is really important. And again, it's public publicly stated information that says, we know that 1/3 of our greenhouse gas emissions is coming from the milk supply, interestingly enough, within the nature of our total supply chain. Agricultural practices take it out and beyond that. So there's lots of things that we need to do as an organisation that looks across the whole chain. But there's things we've already started doing. So we're really proud about, in 2019 in Cannes, we were talking about removing single-use plastics on Smarties, which we were doing from 2020. By the time we hit this year, the crisis hasn't stopped us. We've moved Smarties into paper packaging. And we were very proud to win the award that yourselves were sponsoring with back in the springtime last year on the Sustainability Awards, and the first confectionery brand, the first food brand to do something in this space. So we're making proactive steps down the journey, and we've made some very clear commitments. We've also made to the 2050 goal of being carbon neutral. But within that sort of period of time as well, there are other milestones. So we've already committed to KitKat being carbon neutral by 2025, and that's only pretty soon to be 3 years off. So we're making, we're not just making statements, we're doing stuff. And Smarties is the classic example where we're doing stuff, and the regeneration thought is really bringing, we like to thinking that's challenging everyone to go beyond sustainability. Sustainability, we all understand. Sustainability, to get to sustainability itself would be great, but to think and go beyond regenerative and renewing and restoring the planet. And, I'm a dad with kids, you're a mother, there's plenty of other families out there. We're all going to hand this planet on to our loved ones. And it makes you feel good to be doing something which is actually actively, quickly working towards something which takes us in that direction.
And you're allowing travellers to take part in that and play their part in that by, as you say, purchasing something that they can feel good about. My final question to you today, Stewart, is more general. Obviously, 2021 has been another challenging year for the whole industry and for everyone on the planet. What do you expect from 2022, and B, what do you hope will happen in 2022?
They're two very different things. I think we'd all hope that this thing's going to disappear, and it's almost like the return with Eric coming back to TFWA. That like Bobby Ewing coming out the shower, everything's going to go back to how it was before. We might hope that, but we know it's not. We pay a lot of attention to what the guys at the far end of the lake, WHO down in Geneva, are telling us, and we know there's going to be more challenges to come. We see the vaccine rollout not being swift as we want it to be into Asia, into certain Southern African countries, and certain parts of Latin America, and so on. So we see more challenges. We see more surprises, unexpected things will come along. Nonetheless, we also see light at the end of the tunnel. And I think we've all felt it within the industry in the last 6 months. Gradually, we see passenger numbers returning. It's going to be patchy. It's going to be geographically different. But there's a bit more of a positive vibe going on. And I think the only question is how quickly we get there. We had a very interesting presentation internal presentation from someone who was talking about, dealing with the crisis. And again, credit to you guys, you're doing an awful lot on you coming down the track on the mental health and all that side of things. And we had a gentleman come and talk to us about that whole angle of making sure we're taking care of ourselves. And he talked very importantly about the fact that we have to remind ourselves that this is a temporary situation that we're in. It's not a permanent situation. It's temporary in a long span. Our time spans for all of us have become so short these days that, anything that lasts more than 24-hour news cycle is kind of seems old. But it is temporary, and there will be an end game to it. And we just got to keep reminding ourselves about that and staying positive, because it is going to get better. It's taking time, and we've got to be ready for the unexpected. But so it does feel a little 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But even at that, you're still going in the right direction. And the good thing is, as an organisation, Nestlé remains fully committed to the industry, fully committed to making sure that when we do come out of this, we're in the right place to support our customers and the airport and all the passengers that are travelling through, because this industry's got a bright future. It's had a dark 18 months, and it's probably going to have some challenges in the next 12, but the future's bright.